Hello there, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time, to the Great Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Weber, and this is my show. I came up with it, and I love it. It's my favorite podcast. What I do is I sit across the table from another human being, someone that maybe I know, maybe it's someone that I'm just meeting for the first time, and I hear their story, their life story, the highs and lows, just what goes into making them who they are. But most importantly, we get to the crux of how they came to know Christ, what their relationship looks like with Him, just in the context of their real life. These interviews are 100% unscripted, unrehearsed, unedited. You know, it's just a conversation. You're sitting on the third side of a conversation that I get to have another person. I came up with this because I love podcasts, and I wanted to hear just the real genuine stories from genuine believers, something that's not produced, something that's not a product that has people overseeing it, telling you what you can and can't say. I just want to hear, what's Jesus look like to you? And that's what you're going to hear today. If you like what you hear, I'm sure there are other people you know who would also like what you hear. And you can support the show best by just sharing the show with other people. I'm not doing this to get famous, not doing it to get rich. I just want these stories to get out there because they are so good. If you want to get in touch with me, if you want to come on the show yourself, that'd be awesome. Come on the show. Shoot me an email at thegreatstoriespodcast@gmail.com. All right, today's episode, all I can say is about gratitude. About the one word, gratitude. You're going to meet a man through this interview who's been through a lot, who's experienced a lot, who's had some big highs, some big lows, and who, at the end of it all, is tearfully humbled and grateful for what Christ has done in his life. So this is my interview with David Rhode. I hope you enjoy listening as much as we enjoyed recording it. Here we go. All right, David, welcome. How you doing?
Great.
So, as you were walking up, you were telling me that you lived in this neighborhood.
Literally one street away.
One street away.
Across the block there.
So, Olive Street had a pretty bad reputation. Like, I want to say in 2011, 2012, a lot of gang activity. A lot of, like, there was a gang, not on your block, but like kind of across Central, that was fighting with one over here.
And that's when I moved in.
That's right.
2011 is when I moved out here.
Was there any funny activity over there?
I could tell that it was not the nicest neighborhood.
It was a little sketch, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the guy across the street was like the shot caller for one of the gangs. And his neighbor was the local arms dealer. So he would sell whatever Tech 9s and Uzis and stuff. And the guy that actually lived in this exact spot was the neighborhood meth cook. Wow. So, and I lived in the front house up here for a bit. So for a while, it was just like crazy. Like, what are we doing? What did I move into? Like, we're in the middle of a gang war. The SWAT team's on the street all the time. And I guess over time it kind of mellowed out.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it was right up on the next street over. There's all kinds of exciting things going on.
That's going to kind of, in part of my story, there's going to be something that kind of falls right in line with that, too.
All right.
Something that happened one street over at my house, actually.
All right. Well, we probably know some of the same characters, too, I bet you.
That's wild.
Yeah. Well, what does life look like for you these days? What are you up to?
Life is actually really good for me right now.
Oh.
I mean,
okay.
I'm in a great place. both physically, where I live in Hillsboro,
Yeah.
right across from the country club, Burlingame Country Club, across the street.
Yep.
Golf course.
Okay.
Also health-wise, I'm pretty healthy right now.
Yeah.
Living about the healthiest life I've lived in my whole life.
Yeah.
Financially starting to do a lot better. Not having very much debt anymore.
That helps.
Yeah, it's very relieving, and just spiritually, I'm in a wonderful place.
Man.
And I've never, I never lived like this before, where
Yeah.
he's in control completely. So life is so much easier now. Not relying on myself at all anymore. Really, it's such a peaceful, beautiful place right now. I
Sounds good.
It's in contrast to the way I've lived my whole life.
Yeah.
So
How old are you?
I'm turning 50 December 14th. So
Okay.
in a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
So you're almost a grown up then.
Yeah. It took me 50 years to get here.
I'm never going. Never going. No. Yeah. What are you doing for work these days?
I'm self-employed.
What's that look like then?
So I've been self-employed since 2003.
Okay.
I went off on my own and started doing low voltage. It kind of morphed into that. I was in sales with high-end home theater, home audio video type stuff.
Oh, fun.
Working out of San Jose, and
Yeah.
left there and kind of started programming. The high-end remote, universal remote controls, things like that.
Okay.
Which then that kind of morphed into doing the installs myself and selling the products, and that took about 4, 5, 6 years to get into all that.
Right.
And then it was booming for quite a while.
Yeah.
Up until 2017.
Right.
When all things hit the brakes.
Different kind of booming happened.
Yeah. And then, after that, we'll get into that. But after that, all got resolved. I just started back during the shelter in place. I started back working around June.
Okay.
And with a really big project, and have been pretty busy ever since. So
you're still doing the full from one end to the other?
Yeah, I do things from new construction where I'm wiring homes, and then doing retrofits where I'll come into homes that are already built and pull wires and upgrade and revise what they have. Doing a lot of security cameras nowadays. That wasn't a big thing 10 years ago, but in the last 5, 6 years, I've done a lot more of that.
Okay.
And that's probably half my business.
Not so much then audio, the home theater.
No, I mean, I still do, a lot of TV upgrades, but actually during the shelter in place, a lot of people are upgrading their home theaters.
Oh,
so, because they're not spending money at movie theaters. They're not going out, spending money on entertainment. So they're upgrading a lot of TVs or new TVs.
Yes.
And
I've been a huge advocate for home theater.
Yeah.
Always.
Me too.
So I'm like, I get to sit on my couch. There's no people talking unless it's me.
Right.
The food's better. The bathroom's closer.
Yeah. You can pause it.
I can pause it.
Yeah.
Like it's louder. Look at these things you're sitting next to.
I know. Exactly. Yeah. I noticed that when I came in.
Yeah. I'm sure you did. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a home theater nerd on a tight budget. Yeah. So I built everything. So I made these things. These are car audio.
Oh, wow.
Those are 6x9s out of some guy's trunk. The subwoofer's back.
Yeah.
Each one has an amp in the back of it.
Yeah.
So you just plug it into the wall and it shakes the termites out of it. It's so great. I love it.
In the front house, they can hear you back here.
Yeah. We compete, though. Yeah. Because they got that stuff in their trunk and they love to get that going.
Oh, yeah.
I can hear it from here.
Yeah. I never got into car audio, but, I got into sales at the Sharper Image and then Bang & Olufsen, which is a Danish, very artistic type audio. You see it a lot in movies.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went to Century Stereo out in San Jose, and they were just
Yep.
We were putting movie theaters in people's homes, literally movie theaters, rooms, and projector, the theater chairs, creating a theater room.
Dude.
And then that was like early 2000s, late 99, when the first tech boom went, and we had young guys coming in there like, what's your most expensive speaker?
Right.
It's things like that. So,
15,000 a pair?
Yeah, 50,000.
50,000 a pair? Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when like just one of these, like a plasma TV was like 30 grand for something not much bigger than this.
Yeah, the first 50 inches were 15 to 20 grand. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a little spot in Palo Alto, right on El Camino. There's like a Chevy's next door, and they had
Armories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went in there and I was like, what is this? And that was my first, like the speakers and everything. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, how much are they? I was like, okay. Well, I either have to be a doctor or something, or I got to learn how to make my own stuff.
Yeah.
So, I bought books on air displacement and all that. So I nerded out for a minute.
And then everything went digital and changed the whole game.
Optical. And then when that hit, I was like, oh, great. We got to start
over.
relearn
everything. Yeah, that was interesting.
Well, I'm glad business is picking up again. It's good.
Yeah, it's been really good for me. The Lord's providing me with plenty of work and very profitable work, and allowing me to pay off all my debts. And
what a blessing. Wow.
And where I'm living rent free, so that's enabling me to.
That's the best price.
I mean, he's really providing in every
amazing
way. I mean, it's such a blessing.
Man. Yeah. Well, let's start the story. I know very little about you, like in the longer term. I only know you from basically the last couple of years, post the 2017 event, which we'll get to. But give me the background. Who are you?
You've known the better part of my life, even though it started with
I know the good part
of a terrible event. But
it's
the part where God has taken charge and turned my whole world around. So, okay, well, I was born in Michigan, raised in a Christian family.
Okay.
We went to a Baptist church when I was little. And then when I was getting ready to start going to kindergarten, we switched to a Lutheran church because my mother wanted to get us into a good schooling. My brother was going through a public school, and they weren't challenging him. He's extremely intelligent.
Okay.
And extremely intelligent.
Never had that problem.
And he wasn't being challenged to a point that, she started praying about it and what are some options, and the Lord led her to this Lutheran schooling system. So she thought it was best that we join the church, since we'd be going to school with those kids. And
not bad.
It was good. It was a very good school. I was a very challenging student. I'm extremely hyper.
Okay.
What you'd call it ADHD nowadays.
That's what they call it now.
They didn't know what that was. They just called me hyper.
Difficult.
Yeah. When listening to Steve Mills' podcast, I have similar issues, like a relaxed brain.
I love that. I've started using that all the time.
I love that. But I was a challenge to all my teachers.
What does that look like?
Well,
what is a challenge you might have?
To hold my attention. I think I found this out later in life, but I think a lot of my problem with losing my attention with teachers were I wasn't being challenged enough sometimes. So even though it was a more advanced schooling system than the public schools, if you had to go over something 2 or 3 times,
right,
because some people weren't getting it,
you're gone.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I got it the first time. I don't want to hear it again. And
right.
The third time, you've lost me altogether.
Yep.
Now I'm putting on a little show in the back of the room and getting other kids' attention.
Oh, you take them. That's when they get annoyed.
Yeah.
When you take them with you.
Right. I mean, I'm sure I'm a bold personality, I guess you'd say. I mean, even to the point where life events that affected me and where things like that the enemy would use to mold me and draw me away from God's will. I remember in second grade just being a little challenging to a teacher, and this is in a Christian school, you know.
Okay.
And to a point where she choked me.
Oh, she skipped right past the paddle and went for the...
Yeah, I mean, right to the throat.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And the way that was handled, I didn't, you know, that affected me.
Yeah.
Because that was an example of somebody that was claimed to be a Christian, but wasn't living, or wasn't a very good Christian example.
Right.
And the enemy would use that situation in my life later to keep me focused on, you know, Christians are hypocrites, or being angry at, you know, holding anger in my life, you know,
right.
Giving me an excuse to shun the church or whatever. But that was just one small moment in my life. Fast forward to high school.
Sure.
Still in a Christian school.
Okay.
Still challenging student. Challenging, you know, the norms, you know, speaking up. And I had an event in my junior year. This is another kind of standout moment in my life that kind of changed the direction of my life. I don't know, am I going too fast with the high school?
You're doing great. It's your show.
Didn't really talk about my family yet. But
it's your show. You do what you want.
All right.
Yeah, I'll ask you about your family.
So, you know, junior year in high school, probably the first, you know, party I went to, event, went out on a walk with a friend and got picked up by some other guys that were at the party in their car and to drive us back to the party. Okay. And apparently they had been vandalizing things while they were driving around prior to getting us. And did a little bit of that on the way back to the party.
Okay.
Even though I didn't partake in any of that, you know, I was in the car.
Yeah.
Later that somebody had seen them while they were running around doing their thing. And the police were called to the driver's house. And he said, you know, gave all of our names. So I got caught up into that.
Oh, gosh.
And, you know, brought in and questioned about that night at the party. Let us go because I didn't think that much of it because I didn't partake in anything. You know, I thought everything was fine. A couple days later at school, apparently it hit the newspaper.
With your names and everything. Oh.
And the school's name. Yeah. So the school expelled me.
Oh, and this is a
Lutheran school.
Lutheran school.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well.
So the school expels me.
Of course.
Even though the other 3 kids that were involved told them I had nothing to do with it.
Right.
But because our names were in the paper and with the school's name.
It's out there. That's it. Oh. What did your parents think of it? Did you tell them or did they learn in the paper? Uh-oh.
They didn't learn until I got expelled.
Oh.
I mean, I didn't think I was going to have to tell them because they let us go.
You didn't do anything.
You know, I didn't do anything. So and the other guys said that they told the police I didn't partake. So I didn't think I would be involved with it. But in Michigan, if you're 17, you can be tried as an adult. And the other 3 guys were 16, and I was 17.
Whew.
So they went after me because I was the only one that they could hold accountable. And the other 3 guys that actually committed the crimes just went to juvenile court and didn't have to really...
Have to do some hours or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really changed my opinion of our legal system, of, you know, what's right and fair and how things, they didn't really care about who was guilty, but they just wanted to hold somebody accountable for it.
Yeah. So because they get the points for we got somebody.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to use all my personal savings for college and money that I had been working for, and that all went in towards the lawyer, and I lost everything. As well, I got expelled from the school and had to start going to a public school the last quarter of my junior year. That was kind of traumatic.
Yeah.
So I held a lot of anger and resentment.
Yeah.
How unfair the world was.
Somewhat justified in a lot of ways, yeah.
Justified, but, never could forgive. A lot of blame was thrown around. And look at that. How could a Christian school treat us this way, knowing that I was innocent?
Right.
They didn't care. All they cared about was their name, So that really affected me, and was one more thing the enemy could use as a reminder to,
of course. I would.
Yeah.
If I was him.
Poke me. Exactly.
Yeah.
And also
those people that say they're Christians, look at them.
Right. Those hypocrites.
Disgusting. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. In a way, I was kind of shunned at the church after that. People would look at me like I just felt, the eyes on me, and just didn't really want to go back to that church. And that was really the beginning of me resenting and not wanting to be a part of organized religion at all.
Yeah.
After that.
Right. What was your parents' reaction to all this?
They actually, I was amazed how they handled everything with, they forgave me. They had a meeting with the other parents and the kids at the house, and the other kids admitted that I didn't do anything, and they all agreed that whatever restitution was going to have to be paid, we would split it 4 ways. But even that, in my mind, was not fair, because I'm paying a quarter of their damages, and I'm the one that has to go and stand before a judge and be looked at as the criminal when I'm the only one that didn't do it,
That's gross.
So that really bothered me.
Dang.
But,
And where's your brother at? Is he older? Younger?
Yeah, he's 2 years older than me.
So he was already graduated.
He was already graduated at that point, and he was going to the University of Michigan.
Okay.
As getting a chemical engineering degree.
Okay. Is that the one with the big blue M?
Yeah.
That's the Michigan? That's the one everyone talks about?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not really familiar with college.
I think it's yellow.
Is it yellow?
Yeah.
Yellow M?
Yeah.
Yellow and blue, I know.
Yellow and blue, yeah.
Okay, that's the one.
But that's them.
I should know that by now.
It looks like, what's the college in Belmont area?
Oh, Notre Dame.
No, Menlo College. It has a big yellow M too.
Yeah.
No, high school. Okay. Menlo High School. Not Menlo. Not Menlo. I'm trying to. It's like
it's not Sacred Heart. No.
No. It's off Ralston, I think.
Oh. That's Notre Dame.
Yeah, no, that's not. Oh, yeah,
De Namur.
That's not that one.
Girls.
Maybe it is Menlo. I don't know. But I've seen some school out here that uses that same.
Put that on the lookup later.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
But yeah, U of M. That's where Pastor Will's from.
I know.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He still wears his shirts from there. They're looking pretty ragged, though. He's got to refresh the wardrobe with the Michigan stuff. But
I love all the Michigan people in our church.
There's a lot.
I know.
There's been a big, well, you included, there's been a lot of migration from Michigan to the Bay Area. I know a lot of people from there.
I loved
some of them are going back.
Yeah.
Because the Bay Area is not the promised land anymore. It's kind of weird. But go back to high school. So you're expelled. What happened with like the courts and everything with the judge?
So
how did that go?
That all went. They actually went in 2 different counties. So I had to go to court with 2 different counties and be charged twice.
They did vandalism in 2 different counties.
They crossed county lines when they were doing it.
Oh gosh.
So even though I wasn't in the car with them when they did this, didn't really matter.
That is so weird.
It was just it was so unbelievable to me, like that I had to defend. But I ended up having to do a year of probation And all the charges were dropped, after the year.
Okay.
I had a pretty good lawyer that, explained the situation, but they had to hold somebody responsible.
Right.
And they knew if they had pinned the restitution on me, that the other kids would also be paying it. So, and people's property was damaged. So they had to, they had to hold somebody accountable. So,
wow.
The way our laws were at that time, I was the only one that they could because the other guys were too young. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Man. Well, so what do you do after that? It's a new school.
Well, these are just things in my life that I look back at now, and especially after what's happened to me. They were events that I felt like were terrible and so unfair.
Yeah.
But they were all part of God's plan to get me to a specific place at a specific time. And that came later. It was revealed to me later. So I resented these things for years and years.
While you're in it, you can't see that.
No. But now I'm thankful for all these things. So I ended up going to a public school where I was approached by Army recruiters. And I would have never joined the Army if I was in the Lutheran school.
Okay.
But I ended up enlisting in the Army.
Okay.
Also, at another life event, I was a band geek.
Okay.
And, we didn't have anything like a marching band or anything like that at the Lutheran school, but...
Right. They're too small for that.
But they did at the public school, and the guy that was running that was involved with the drum and bugle corps, which would tour around the nation in summers.
So were you a drum or a bugle?
I was a bugle.
Okay.
I was a trumpet player. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And
I was a horn player.
Okay.
Trombone.
Yeah.
Sitting right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So brass. I'm also
band geek.
Yeah. So I he got me to try out for that, and I ended up getting accepted, and we toured that summer right before I went into the Army.
Yeah.
And ended up at Arrowhead Stadium for the DCI championships.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing.
That's cool.
We took second place to this drum and bugle corps called the Santa Clara Vanguard from Santa Clara, California. Which I had no idea where that was at the time.
That's funny.
And ended up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's what a neat... Yeah.
All of these little things started connecting, the dots connecting. It was pretty interesting. Served 2 years in the Army. Oh, okay. Actually 3. I enlisted for 2. And then,
when is this? This in the early 80s then?
89.
Late 80s, okay.
Yeah.
So that's, where was the Desert Storm right in there? When
that was going on.
That was it.
Yeah, that's Panama was going on while I was in basic.
Okay.
The Panama Canal stuff, and we were all being told we were going to get shipped right to Panama.
Yeah.
In basic training. And I was a medic. I was going to be a medic in the military. So I went and did my AIT, my medical training in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And then got stationed at the Presidio of San Francisco, Letterman Army Medical Center.
Yep.
And I had no idea where San Francisco was, or I thought I was going to Hollywood, literally.
Far from it.
Yeah.
North Beach, no.
But California was like, I never even imagined coming out here.
Yeah.
For that.
Why? How did you choose medic? How did that come up?
Well, I rated really high in my testing. Okay. And so I was able to pick pretty much anything I wanted.
And you picked medic.
I thought...
Why is that?
Working in a hospital seemed interesting. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even... I wasn't even that excited about going to college because I had no concept of what I wanted to do. School was not something I enjoyed.
Right.
So I didn't really have I want to be this or I want to be that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what made me even consider joining the Army, just because I thought maybe if I took a couple of years, I could figure out,
develop a little,
what I wanted to do with my life, and then go from there. And that was really a blessing, because going through the training to be a medic was pretty intense.
Yeah.
And I excelled at it.
Huh.
The faster, the harder they pushed us, the better I did. So I realized that a lot of my schooling was going too slow for me, and that's why I would lose interest all the time. I didn't realize this till later in life, but that was a lot of the problems I had in school. Was it didn't challenge me enough.
Man. So is Army medic stuff mostly like trauma type things? They concentrate a lot on that.
Yeah, if you're going to be a field medic, and that's kind of what I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But then I got stationed at Letterman Army Medical Center, which was this massive hospital.
Okay.
It was bigger than a hospital. It's a medical center. So, and then it ended up downsizing to a hospital, and then they ended up getting rid of it altogether.
Okay.
By the time I got like 94, I think it was downsized and gone. But I got out in 92. But I got a lot of experience there. I worked up on the ward, and the thoracic ward, dealing with heart surgery patients and spinal surgery and brain surgery patients. And then I ended up cross training as a OR tech and working in the minor surgery clinic.
Okay. Wow.
And I loved all of that. I mean, working in the wards was a little difficult because I'm a people person.
Yeah.
And I would create relationships with these people, and then when you lose them, it was pretty, I took that home with me.
Well, you lose them one way or another. They leave or die.
Yeah, we would get bridge jumpers, and we would get,
yeah.
people that had just gone through heart surgery, and sometimes they just weren't going to make it, That was really traumatic for me. So working in an operating room I enjoyed much more.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have that personal connection.
Right.
It was more sterile, Everything's draped off. You're just dealing with a specific part of the body, and you don't really get to know the person at all.
Yeah, they're just a subject.
Right. So that was much easier.
Yeah.
So I thought I was going to stay into that.
Yeah. While
I was in the military, I mean, we didn't really go through my child life, but we'll go back to that.
You can touch on it back. Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, let's go back a little bit, because I feel like I'm rushing through things.
Go back.
So, growing up, one of the questions was like, what was your family life like?
Yeah.
I had a great childhood for the most part, My big brother was awesome. He was patient with me. He put up with me. Parents were always there. Dad was very involved with my life and our lives, coached our teams, and, he was always there. We would go on vacations to like Christian camps, like Spring Hill. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
It's a Christian camp and retreat ministry.
Okay.
In Michigan. They also have them in Indiana and Ohio and Illinois, and that's where when I was about 11, I think, when I first accepted Jesus as my Savior. Like, I told my mom, I believe.
At 11.
Yeah. But I didn't really get it. I believed it, but I didn't understand it, like what it meant to live as a Christian. Or
what was your... Yeah, this is so interesting, because there's Like every parent wants to hear that, right? Like their kid, like, I believe it. But there's always that question, like, yeah, like you know it, but do you really know what you're doing? Like, is it really in there?
I almost took it like, I believed that Jesus died for me. I believed that I was going to go to heaven because Jesus saved me. But then I kind of, as I grew older and through high school and grade school, I kind of took it more like the prodigal son. You know, like, okay, now I can do anything I want. I can live however I want.
Fire insurance.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm covered.
Right.
You know?
Huh.
And even when I kind of fell away from things and bad things happened in my life, and I, like with the high school situation, and I blamed the church and didn't want to be a part of organized religion, and I still believed I was saved.
Right.
I wouldn't tell anybody that I was a Christian. I wasn't proud of it. I was more concerned about other people's opinions of me, and you know, that was pretty much my whole life.
Yeah, sort of in the background, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
I believed it, but it was more between me and him.
Yeah.
Not anybody else's. I didn't need to share that with anybody.
Yeah. So as you're talking, there's like 50 things I'm thinking about, but I feel like that's a very common story that I hear in some elements, because I ran grade school ministry for the last 5 years. And so there's it's such a challenge with kids. And even in the middle school, and I have a high school group that I participate in also, and you're always sort of chasing that authenticity element of it, where especially the kids that grow up in the church, they'll kind of know these things. They'll have a lot of knowledge. They'll know the Bible verses, and you can ask questions and they know the right answers, but there's like an internalization in a lot of ways that doesn't really happen until like life gets a little weird. And then they'll know something, but they don't have a spot to put it until later. And so a lot of them, you know, they say, oh, I got saved like 3 times. Because they got once when they were in grade school, once more in high school, and then finally in college. Then I was really, and they can't tell you when it really was. Like there wasn't a moment. It was more like a graying that happened. At least that's how it was for me in a lot of ways. Although mine was more black than gray. I think it's just gone for a while.
Yeah, my need to be accepted and liked by people was just so important to me.
It took the front row. Yeah. Yeah,
always more important than what God thought of me. Never even considered that, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that I didn't really pay attention enough in church, or if they, you know, a lot of churches don't focus on the gospel so much.
No.
So, you know, in the Lutheran church, it was more structure and legalism and things like that. So it was just a bunch of words, you know. And I also didn't really see people living it out,
right?
Like I see in our church, you know. Kids weren't proud to be Christians or, you know, talking about it that way.
Yeah.
It was the world. It was all the world.
Right.
You know. So I didn't really get it at all.
I always tell people that I don't know if my church didn't preach the gospel or I wasn't listening.
Right.
But either way, it's probably both.
Yeah.
Really, I was listening to what they were saying, and they weren't saying anything worth listening to. I don't think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then back in the hospital then. So are we there? Are we gonna go back?
Well, let's go jump back into the military.
Yeah.
So I'm in the military, and I'm out here for about a year doing the hospital thing. And I met someone out here in Palo Alto, Brazilian girl. And within a year, I married her. I was 20 years old. Right. I was really young.
Go for it.
But it's like my buddies were all getting married.
Yeah.
They were getting houses. They were getting paid more for getting married.
Really?
You get more money if you get married.
How?
So you can support your spouse.
How many?
Like, for me, it was like, so they're pretty much pushing this, The Army's like, go get married.
Oh, you mean the military gives you more
money. Oh. Like, they raised my pay just because I got married, and they gave me, I got to move out of the barracks.
I was just thinking, like, is there something I don't know about? Like,
it has nothing to do with your job. You don't have to do anything more work, but they're going to give you more money if you're married. And I was just like blown away by that. So I was like, what are we waiting for? So she was 19, I was 20. We jumped right into it. She could barely even speak English.
Wow.
Like, we didn't have long conversations or.
No, I can imagine.
It was we used dictionaries sometimes and pointed at words with translation dictionaries to talk to each other. And the first year here in the military, it was great. But then I got out and we were like, let's move to Orlando. I didn't want to move back to Michigan.
It's cold.
Yeah. My parents always talked about moving to Florida and retiring in Florida. And my grandma lived down there, and my great aunt, my grandma's sister, lived down in the Keys. And we vacationed down there. I loved Florida. So I thought, let's try Florida. So we moved to Orlando.
Wow.
And within 6 months to a year, we got divorced.
Okay.
So we were only married for about 2 years, not even.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it? Just different people, or what? Like, how did that?
Well, it blindsided me.
Okay.
Because I was, we got there, and I had made a decision on what I wanted to do. Working in the hospital.
Yeah.
I had spent a lot of time talking with different nurses and doctors, and I was going into nurse anesthesiology. Nurse anesthetist.
Yeah.
Working in an operating room, but
that's the hardest word to say.
Anesthetist. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever announced it correctly.
Anesthetized.
But
anesthetist.
It was the you didn't have to carry insurance. It was high pay.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
I was still in the operating room where I didn't have to come home feeling traumatized every day.
Right.
So I was going to school and working full time. So I was absent, and at 21, I wasn't so aware of how to be a good husband as far as making her feel loved.
Who is at 22?
I was so focused on starting our lives, she couldn't really communicate with me on how she felt and what her needs were.
Yeah.
She just disappeared one day.
Wow.
And that really destroyed me.
Just up and gone.
I came home one day and she was gone. I didn't even know there was anything wrong.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there's
Did you ever figure it out? Like what?
Just recently. So
really?
But that's later in the story.
Whoa.
So
okay.
It's crazy.
Man.
But I don't want to jump ahead yet because
I'm gonna write it down. We'll get back to that.
This was a major turn in my life because I went from so focused and driven on where I was going, and I had an idea of who I was going to be, and we were just getting started in our lives together. Then all of a sudden I felt like betrayed, abandoned, zero self-worth. I stumbled out of school. I basically just dropped out.
Man.
My life took a really hard turn to not caring at all about what happened to me anymore. Like, live or die, I didn't really care. It was like I stayed away from certain things in my life prior to that just because I was scared of what it would do to me, like, experimenting in drugs and things like that, or being around people that were living dangerous lives to, and also concerned of how that would affect my family, my parents.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother was so, spiritual and such a constant always in the Word and talking about testimonies and how God has, led her throughout her life. And I wouldn't want to let her down to, it didn't matter.
Yeah, now you're on the other end of the country. And
I'm down in Florida.
Yeah.
She's up in Michigan.
Yeah.
So they're not close to know what's going on in my life. I started hanging out with all the wrong people. Started trying everything. Taking big risks with my life. And I didn't know what was going to happen to me if I tried this, and I did it anyway. I didn't care. To a point where I was even, selling and, to support my habits and things that I wanted to try.
Right.
Up until one day I found myself tied up on a floor with a gun to my head. And that didn't even really bother me.
Yeah, you're like, whatever.
Yeah, I came home and talked about that to some friends, and they were in tears.
Huh.
And I was talking about it like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal. And then I was still in contact with my wife, my ex-wife at that point. I didn't know how to handle, because shortly after she left me, she did start talking to me again. And we kind of stayed friends a little bit. It was weird, 'cause I just didn't know how to compute everything.
Wow.
And when she found out about that, the whole gun to the head thing, that really bothered her, and she started making calls and talking to friends back here in California, and got me a place to stay back in Palo Alto with a friend who was an au pair in Atherton, actually, and got her to, take me in so I could get out of there.
Wow.
I wouldn't have left. I didn't really care.
Right. Were you working during that whole time?
No, I had quit jobs. I was being sustained by that lifestyle.
Yeah, you were out, way out there.
And I had a lot of money too, because I started. Again, I'm a people person, and I was this really friendly, nice guy that didn't take advantage of people.
Right.
That everybody trusted. And so I moved up pretty quickly in the ranks. Yeah. I went from nobody to somebody everybody knew.
Right.
And dealing with very bad people.
Yeah.
And being in very bad situations, but they all liked me because I never wronged them, and they knew I could be trusted.
Right.
It was so strange.
How did it go wrong then? What was it was, this is degrees of wrong we're talking about, but
I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was with somebody, picking stuff up, and somebody broke into their apartment and tied us all up and robbed them.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And, had us all down with guns to our heads, and
yeah. Wrong place.
They weren't after me. I just happened to be there,
Seems to be a theme.
Yeah. But again, it's who you spend your time with. You're
the company you keep, right?
Exactly.
Man.
So
how long were you in Orlando then?
2 years.
2 years there. So you're 2 years in the Presidio.
3 almost.
So 3 years here, 2 years there.
And I'm back here in 95.
Back in 95. Okay.
Yeah. So that whole thing kind of happened early 95, and then she within like 2 months later, I moved after that situation.
Wow.
Yeah, it shook me. What bothered me was the way other people reacted to it. Like, so many people were in tears when they heard about it. And they're like, you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And you can't just, like, move up the street.
No.
So
no.
I needed to get out of there, you know.
That's what people say. A total relocation is like huge.
Right.
Huge for that. Because all your connections are gone.
Right.
The streets are different.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody out here again.
Right.
So that's what brought me back to California.
Yeah.
In 95.
Did you have to go through any kind of treatment program, anything like that? Or
I just quit everything.
Wow.
Yeah. I was doing a lot of stuff, but it wasn't any, like, one thing that I really was doing a lot of. I would just try everything.
Right. Yeah.
Everything. So if you name it, I'd probably have done it. Wow. It's pretty extreme. Because I think, I look back at it and I think I was trying to end myself.
That's what it sounds like. I was going to say that. It sounds like it's not an addiction to substances. It's just I
was testing, will this kill me? How about this? Will this kill me?
Right.
How about if I do too much of this?
Some people take up hang gliding.
Yeah. It was a very dark part of my life.
Yeah. Where was your faith during that period? From kind of like the getting married to the Orlando.
While we were married, we did start to go to church, and that was kind of another thing. Like when she left, and then when she came back a few weeks later, we went to our pastor that we were going to a church, and I tried to get him to convince her that what she was doing was wrong. But by that point, she had already made up her mind, and I was kind of starting to think that maybe she, like, left me for another man or something, and I didn't think I could take her back. I couldn't accept that. And that's something that I held on. I never really got clarity on any of that, or the true reason why.
Yeah.
And that was another thing the enemy held up to me, kept me from ever being in another long-term relationship because of that. I could never trust anybody.
Right.
Couldn't remarry because I didn't trust anybody to stay married.
Yeah.
Or take the vows seriously because when I got married, it was for life.
Yeah, you said what you meant. Yep.
Yeah, I never even considered it to be, no matter what, we were going to work through it, So that was just life-changing for me. And I never could figure out how to forgive. I had a lot of resentment, a lot of anger that I held on to from that.
Well, where do you go from that?
So
it's a rough spot.
Yeah.
To sit in.
Yeah, I mean, the enemy used all of these, the grade school thing, the high school thing, the marriage, and then he used other situations. Like, I'm always been very giving and helping people out, and people took advantage of that throughout my life, from roommates, not paying rent, and then taking off, to just people taking advantage of my kindness. And I kept doing it, but then I would hold anger. I wouldn't forgive.
Right.
And I'd have resentment. And I just the anger kept growing inside of me, building up, and started to hate people more and more, not distrust,
Yeah.
I still loved people in a sense. When I met people, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and then they would let me down again. And
yeah, you start to just expect that.
Right.
You anticipate it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So fast forward to here, me living a block away from here.
Well, how long you were in the au pair, or?
Okay, so I lived there for like a couple years. Maybe almost 2 years. I stayed there.
Okay.
And then I moved in like into Redwood City. I got a place with some friends that I was working with. Started working at Sharper Image. That was my first sales job in my life. I was told I should be a salesman since I was a little kid.
Which one were you at? Which Sharper Image?
Stanford Shopping Center.
Okay.
And then
I know that one.
I went from there to managing the Sharper Image at Stanford Shopping Center for about a year or two.
Okay.
Really excelled in sales to a point where my manager would brag when she'd take smoke breaks out in front of the Bang & Olufsen, like 4 stores up, and brag about me.
Yeah.
So one day the manager of Bang & Olufsen offered me a job and kind of stole me away from her.
Smart.
Yeah. And that's what got me into audio video sales.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they had their own concept of home theater and high-end stereo equipment. And I excelled there. Became the manager of that store.
Okay.
And started working up at Union Square, the Bang & Olufsen right on Union Square in San Francisco. And I was managing the 2 stores, going back and forth.
Okay. Not bad.
Yeah. I did really good.
As far as the world is concerned,
I was having fun.
That's a good turnaround.
Yeah. I was really enjoying myself with that. And I was enjoying San Francisco for the first time in my life. And traveling a lot. Bang & Olufsen sent me to Denmark as I was top sales in the nation one year. And
wow.
Yeah. That was really awesome. I went to Europe a couple times. I went to Brazil, which was odd because after being married to a Brazilian girl,
You're like
I actually learned the language after we separated.
After
we separated.
That would have come in handy before, maybe.
You'd think. But I didn't have enough time. We got divorced too quickly, but yeah. And then I traveled to Brazil, spent a month in Brazil, traveling around.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing. So I did a lot of traveling at that time in my life, and I was having fun, but I was living in the world. So
making sales,
caring about people's opinions of me.
Yeah.
Enjoying things of this world.
Yeah.
Partying a lot with friends out here, going to clubs and things like that I never did before.
Right.
That was a pretty good time, I'd say. Snowboarding, go up to the mountains, go snowboarding.
Nice.
That was really fun.
Back when snowboarding was cool.
Yeah.
Now everyone's dad does it. It's not cool anymore.
First year I did it, I separated my shoulder. A complete shoulder separation, yeah.
Oh.
But that didn't stop me. I still loved it.
Live the dream.
Yeah. And then the manager that recruited me to Bang & Olufsen had left. And that's kind of how I took over as manager.
Okay.
And he came out to this high-end stereo shop in San Jose. And then he recruited me there.
Okay. That's the Central...
Century Stereo.
Century Stereo.
They're out of business now.
Okay.
About a year or two ago, they closed down.
Too bad.
Yeah, they're since like 1950. They're started out of a guy's garage. Yeah, really high-end, stereo audio equipment.
Nice.
But the digital age affected them too.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're not ahead of it, you're behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I worked there for a few years.
So tell me, okay, what made you so good at sales? Like, what was your thing? Like, would you just talk to someone? Hey,
I'm relationship sales. I start talking to people.
You'd become their friend.
Yeah.
Aha.
I hated salespeople, so I didn't like. Didn't want to become a salesperson.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the whole pushy, salesman-y, con man kind of car sales type of sales. And even when they would send us to sales classes and they would teach us a lot of those techniques, I'd be like, nah, that's not me.
What do I have to do to get you to go home with this?
Yes, and I would do the exact opposite. I'd talk people out of stuff. This is not for you. I didn't know that was an actual sales technique, the takeaway.
You don't want this.
Yeah.
You can't handle this.
You can't afford this.
Yeah.
Or that's too much money. You don't need to be spending their money.
It's too nice. Your ears can't tell the difference anyway. Most people can't.
I was more concerned with giving them what they needed and not taking advantage of them and feeling good about myself when I went home every day.
Okay.
So I was big in relationship sales, whether I knew it or not. I enjoyed talking to people.
It worked.
Yeah.
Huh.
I excelled in it everywhere I went. That's kind of when I went off on my own why I did so well.
Yeah.
Because all my clients stayed with me.
Yeah, because you're their friend now.
I've known clients for 15, almost 20 years now. People that started with me when
Yep.
They've been with me all along.
Every 5 years they have to upgrade everything.
Yeah, or some of them are even more often.
Yeah.
Buying new homes, I've watched their kids grow up, So that
Man.
It's a personality thing that I didn't really have to work at,
I like it.
Yeah. It was interesting. And I enjoyed just, conversations with people and getting to know people, and it was fun.
Relationship sales.
Right. So that's, that was also, now looking back, when we get to the heart of this.
Yeah.
God used all of that, all of these experiences, getting me into sales, getting me to be that type of a salesperson, then going off on my own and starting my own business, building relationships with clients that stayed with me over the years. And I never really was with my business, I never did advertising or anything like that. It was my clients
They would tell their
sent
friends.
people my way, They talk so highly of me.
I know a guy.
I never had to sell myself. When people would come to me, they were already, we want you. Whatever you say, we'll do.
Wow.
I didn't have to convince people to spend money. We would sit down and talk about what their needs are. I'd present them with what I thought, and they would say yes. It was that easy.
It's good.
Pretty much. I never really was challenged by anyone.
Not bad.
Yeah. But then again, I usually was downselling people. If anything, they'd say, I want to spend a little bit more, or I can, I can go bigger. So.
Yeah, I want to be able to tell my friends how much this costs.
Yeah. Some people were like that.
Yeah.
That would always surprise me, but I understood later.
Yeah.
They would want to say they bought the most expensive speaker, or.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But God used those relationships when I needed them later in life, not only to provide me with more clientele and more customers to keep things going,
right?
But then when life changed for me, they stayed in my life, as we're going to get to.
Yeah. How close are we? Let's get them. I'm
So
eager.
I'm in business for a little while. I want to tell one more experience that kind of goes back to me moving out here.
Okay.
In around 2011.
Yep.
And what this area was like.
The hood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was living one street over.
Uh-huh.
By myself, had like a 4-bedroom house, 3, 4-bedroom house. My friend's parents owned the property, and they had lived there prior, so I was able to get it at a really reasonable rate. Again, a friend I had known from earlier living out here came across my path, and he was in need. He was homeless or living out of his car.
Okay.
So I let him move in with me, and it was like going to be a temporary thing, but then he kind of maneuvered into staying.
Interesting.
Never really paid rent, never came through, but always had a reason or a problem or something.
An angle.
Yeah, that made me feel sorry for him.
Right.
So I let it go. And actually befriended someone from Resonate. He was friends with someone from Resonate who then told me about Resonate.
When was this? It's 2011.
12, maybe 12, 13.
Brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
12 or 13 maybe now at this point.
Who's that? Can you shout him out? Who's it?
Joseph. He owns Mantiques.
Joe Tarquini.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And which
everybody
was funny.
knows.
And then he started dating a girl who was like best friends with Jill.
Okay.
So they had mentioned Resonate to me.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't met Joe yet at that time.
Okay.
I met him after. But his girlfriend told me about Resonate, who was friends with Jill.
Yeah.
And then...
they're great. The whole family's so cool. I love the Tarquinis.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the way so this guy's living with me, and then one morning I hear a banging on my door. I answer the door, and it's federal marshals with guns drawn, like 5 or 6 of them on my porch with guns drawn to my face. And they asked me, does this guy live here? And I'm like, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And they like storm into the house. And I step out onto the front porch, and I got my little dog in my arms. He's a little guy, and he's shaking. And I look around the neighborhood, and it's like quiet. There's not a police car around. And, you know, I didn't even know who they were. They were just all in black, and they had like, you know, shotguns and handguns like drawn in my face. And as they barged in, I saw Marshall on the back of their, you know. Yeah,
they come down. They creep down the street.
Yeah. So I'm looking around the street, and there's nothing going on. I'm like, where did these guys come from? And I hear them, clear, blah, clear, you know.
Yeah.
And I turn around, and I'm looking in the house, and then I turn back around, and there's like 6 more guys standing in my front yard.
Ninjas.
All drawn, weapons drawn on me.
Federal ninjas.
They pull me into the house. They put me in cuffs. They start throwing the house apart. They're telling me I'm going to prison. I don't know what's going on. Okay. I have no idea what's going on. This is like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
You know, they end up finding him. He was hiding somewhere in the back because he knew what was going on immediately.
He was home.
He was home. Yeah. And he knew what was going on. As soon as he heard them coming to the door, he went and hid.
He knows the cop knock.
I guess. Yeah.
Is that one?
I guess. Yeah. It was. I was up sitting there having my coffee, getting ready for the day.
Okay.
You know,
the dog thinks we're off. No, it was me.
And
gosh,
man, it was
wrong place at the wrong time, man.
Traumatizing. And this time I wasn't doing anything. You know, I was helping somebody. I had no idea.
Yeah.
They end up taking him away, and as they're taking him out, he's like begging them, "Don't do anything to this guy. He doesn't know what's going on. He has no idea."
You still don't?
Yeah, I still don't know what's going on, but he's telling the police or the marshals that as they took him out. And then I call his mom because they left his cell phone there. So I call his mom, who lives back in Philly, and I have to tell her, you know, I don't know what's going on, but they just took your son. And as I'm speaking to her, I'm finding out all these lies that have been going on.
To you?
To me, from him.
Okay.
And I'm finding out pretty much everything he's told me has been lies. So I start to get, you know, angry and resentment again. Another guy is taking advantage of me. And this is where, after that situation happened, I had to call people because I found all this stuff that was stolen from all of his friends in his room. When I went into his room, eventually... he had stuff from me. He'd gone through my drawers and taken clothing and taken things from my room. And then I'm seeing all this stuff, and it's stuff from all these people that he's been acquainted with.
Wow.
So I end up starting to call all of his friends and inviting them over to go through it and take their own property.
Wow.
And Joe was one of those guys I called. And that's when I first kind of really got to meet Joe.
Okay.
And what was astonishing to me, I have to say, is the way Joe handled it. Because I was very judgmental at the time, and I was not given any grace or forgiveness or, right. And I was like surprised and confused by the way Joe was so forgiving and so understanding and so quick to give grace and not to judge. It didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't understand it at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is he, he almost like making excuses for him, or that's the way I saw it at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, he was lying to everybody, stealing from all his friends, and Joseph wasn't about to judge him at all. He was given grace immediately and forgiveness. And I couldn't forgive. I had no concept of that. It was just another person that took advantage of me.
Right.
That used me, that lied to me. The enemy was like filling me with anger and judgment, and Joseph was coming at it with love and forgiveness and understanding, and that made no sense to me.
Yeah.
He left, that blew my mind, and
you're like, who is this guy?
Yeah, why is he so nice? And like, why is he so forgiving of this guy? Why?
Right.
Almost like I felt like he let him get away with it, kind of thing. But
right.
In hindsight, I understand now, after going to Resonate for a while.
Yeah.
And seeing the kind of person Joseph is.
What do you think Joe would say is why he was that way versus being resentful and all that?
Well, now I understand it's because it's not for Joseph to judge. Joe wasn't judging him because he's not his judge.
Yep.
It's God who judges us, not Joseph's place to lay judgment on him or, join me in putting him down or pointing out his sins or his wrongdoings, and I couldn't understand that at all at the time, because I had a long list of all the bad things that this guy had done that I had just found. I didn't even have an idea. It was all revealed after the fact,
Yeah.
And it was blowing my mind at what a liar he was. Yeah. Like literally almost every conversation we ever had, he was lying about everything.
Yeah.
As I talked to different people, we all had different stories of the same thing. There's slightly different versions.
Wow.
And stories for men and stories for women, and all the women's stories were very similar, and all the men's stories were very similar.
Pathological.
It was so mind-blowing. I never met anybody like that before.
Wow.
And I'm telling Joseph all this stuff, and he's not joining in on that destructive, judgmental, he was forgiving and didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why he wouldn't join me. But I'm
that's
so impressed
hard.
by it. I'm so impressed by that.
Right.
Now, knowing now who I am, that would still be difficult for me.
Oh, yeah.
So it really impressed me on who Joseph is. Like, what a good example he was at that moment, whether I knew it or not, and how he was living out his faith. It was impressive.
That's a struggle that I've got constantly is that seeking to put someone down, I think.
Yeah.
I could judge you.
I still struggle with that too.
Even my neighbors just moved in up here. They've been here for probably a year now. And gosh, every time I walk through that yard, it's just some days I'm just steaming. Mm-hmm. Cause I don't think they're super bright, but they come up with new ways to just get under my skin every single day. And That's the hardest thing. It's like, gosh, I should be witnessing to them through my character, if only. But I spend more time just irritated by, oh, there's rocks on my walkway. They left their garbage in them. I got to step over it. I'm just steaming on that a lot of times. The worst case, there's one fella, I won't bring his name up, but people who know him will know who it is. He was a very trusted guy, went to church with me, went to small group with me, served in the ministry that I was in, teaching grade schoolers the Bible, sang on the worship team, scoutmaster, everything. Turned out he'd been cheating on his wife for years with men, gave her an STD, exchanged dirty pictures of kids with people from who all over the, like, wow. He went to prison for it for like a year, and all that stuff. 10 years. I sat next to the guy on the couch. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And that, to this day, still fries me. Mm-hmm. I have dreams. Like, I'm talking within a month ago, I had a dream that I bumped into this guy. And normally when you're in a dream, you can't fight. You know, like you try to hit someone and you can't. I hit him.
Yeah.
My dream let me do it. That's how much, like, just this ugly thing is in there. And, Scott, one of our pastors, I was telling him about that guy one time, and just like, it's so hard to let this go. And the one thing that he said to me was like, man, what if Christ held against you the things that you deserve to be hit for? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Like, I have no grounds to cast judgment.
Right.
Because what if I got the judgment I deserve? And now I'm in a position to do that to someone else. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter what he did. It's not my place.
That's one of my biggest prayers, is to be able to forgive, be slow to judge, slow to anger, quick to give grace. I mean, it's so hard.
I know.
It's, that's probably still my biggest struggle.
Yeah.
If I'm not focused on him at all times,
right.
It's so easy to slip right back into that.
Yeah.
Things that are out of my control can still upset me so much.
Yep.
And it's going to be, that's the next thing he's working on me with right now.
He's never done.
Never done.
Nope.
So after that experience, I was then back by myself. Joe mentioned you should try out Resonate,
Yeah.
So that was the second person that told me about Resonate. So technically they both kind of came from them, because Jill's best friend told me about it because of Jill.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then Joseph mentioned it. And I considered going there, but then, every time I thought about it, it's like, I got to give up my Sunday. There are probably just a bunch of hypocrites like those other hypocrites, and I didn't really want to be part of a organized religion.
Just be let down again.
The enemy just like flooded me with all these memories. Remember this, remember how these people were, remember how this happened in your life. Why do you want to go back and just be exposed to that again and be let down and disappointed
Yeah.
So
that's what I would do.
I just never even went,
Yeah.
So I continue on. I'm starting to do really well. Business has grown to a point where I'm traveling first class all the time, several times a year now. I'm got a home gym set up in my place. I, started a new relationship. She moves in with me. We're traveling. going to Hawaii, having great times.
Nice. Still living right here.
Right here.
I was living right here the whole time. Yeah,
this is 2016. My dad passed. Oh, yeah. My dad passed in 2016. That was difficult. He was 89.
60. Okay.
My parents were living in Florida now for about 15 years.
Yeah.
They had moved from Michigan down to Florida. I would go to visit them like once or twice a year.
Okay.
And I wasn't, again, I'm not like, I was confident my dad went to heaven. I was a believer,
Right.
But I didn't believe I needed to live it. I was such a hypocrite. I was the hypocrite that I was pointing out, Mark telling all these people are hypocrites.
Right.
But that was me, really, because I believed it, but I wasn't even considering living it. I really didn't understand it.
Right.
And I always kind of went back to, I'm that prodigal son, that I'm going out and doing whatever I want. Now,
I'll get right later.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Now, through my life, I had really good examples of living it. My mom lived it.
Yeah.
Her whole life. From her actions, even when I was doing all this craziness in Orlando and moving back here and living a very worldly life.
Yeah.
I couldn't have a conversation with my mom that we didn't pray. That she didn't give me a testimony of something that was happening in her life that week, or that someone else had told her, or that she had experienced. And I was oftentimes annoyed by it.
I know what you mean.
After this week's sermon, where he was pointing out why some people don't like Christians, because of their complete confidence in Christ's love, that annoyed me sometimes. That how she was so confident in these testimonies she would give me, or these situations in life, how God was working in her life, how God was working in other people's lives. It was like, yeah, whatever, I never said that, but sometimes I was just like, okay, Mom,
just stop.
Yeah. You're not going to convince me, right. Kind of thing.
I know what you're
trying to do. And then we'd still she'd pray with me. I mean, this is now 20 plus years,
wow.
of another amazing example. This is something I got to share. My brother went off to University of Michigan, top of his class as a chemical engineer, coal valedictorian or whatever it was at University of Michigan, graduating like tied as the top student.
Okay.
As a chemical engineer, the Navy.
Little brain.
The Navy snatched him up while he was going to school there and started paying for his college and made him an officer while he was still going to college. He didn't even have to train or anything. They were paying him to go to college, and they wanted him to become a chemical engineer in the Navy. He left and then was, in charge of a nuclear reactor on a aircraft carrier with the Navy. Just like excelling in life.
Wow.
And he was going to be rich beyond belief. While through that time, he left the Navy, and there's some story to that. And then he decided he didn't want to live of this world, to a point where, talk about dying to self, picking up your cross and following Jesus. My brother decided he didn't want to be a nuclear engineer or a chemical engineer. He didn't want things of this world. He gave away all his possessions.
Whoa.
He started going on these pilgrimages where he would just go and walk, and to a point where he wouldn't even have any money with him or anything, and just completely relying on God to provide for him.
Wow.
He has a blog online that you can read his pilgrimages from 2000 to 2007, where he went on these walks and just walked where the Lord led him and spent his days praying, and he wouldn't approach people or ask for anything. You'd literally have to, he would go to some churches and maybe stay the night or ask to stay, or sometimes he would just go into a church and they would start conversations with him, asking him what he was doing. And
right.
Because he almost looked like a homeless person.
Yeah.
Just going for walks, only had the clothes on his back and maybe a little backpack, sleeping on the side of the road.
What?
And the Lord would provide for him. It's if you read some of his vlogs, it's so remarkable. I think part of it was him testing his faith to see if,
right. The Lord will provide.
It was real, and which I think concerned my mom a little bit at first.
Yeah.
But she was concerned he was maybe challenging God, But when she realized it was really him just following God and allowing God to provide and putting complete faith in God will provide for me.
Yeah.
To a point where people would give him money and he would give them back half. He said, I only need enough for today.
Wow.
And every day he was fed, and people would pull up on the side of the road, ask him what he's doing, take him home, feed him, spend the night there, and then he'd be off on his way. They'd send him off with money. It's just remarkable. It's the most amazing.
He did that for 7 years?
Yeah, 1 year, 2004, he didn't do it.
Okay.
But from 2000 to 2003, then he didn't walk on 2004 and 2005, 2006, and 2007. He did it.
Wow.
And it's all online. You can read his journals, and it is remarkable. It is.
So you're hearing of these things.
So when he started doing that, when he decided to give up things of this world, he had already left the Navy. He had already. We were raised when we were little. We went to a Baptist church, and then we went to the Lutheran schools. When he was in the Navy, he had a relationship with a Catholic girl. And when he got out of the Navy, he actually joined the Dominicans, the Roman Catholic church. And he was in seminary for 2 years to become a priest.
Whoa.
And then left there, partially on their request, because...
too radical.
Well, he struggled with the politics and the wealth in big institutions.
Yes.
That challenged, what he understood. And then he started his pilgrimages after that.
This is all in the States? Like, where was he walking around?
Yeah, in the States. He would start in Florida and then start walking north and walk up through, up in through Kentucky and Tennessee, and work walking up to Michigan from Florida.
So he's spending a lot of time just in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And
a lot of times
he's that guy.
I think the first one he started on the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
And then that went off to, as he walked and walked, and God kind of led him to the road, and then he started walking up and then stopping in churches and on Sundays and just attending the sermon, and then leaving and going walking, and then people that saw him at church when they were driving home would stop on the side of the road and say, "Hey, weren't you just at the church?
Right.
What are you doing?" And then
walking.
And then he would tell them, "I'm following God, where God leads me." And then they were so interested in that, they would say, "Do you want to come home and we'll feed you and you can spend the night, and then we'll take you a little bit further up the road, and then you can go from there?" Sure. And he's not a conversationalist like I am. He's not one for small talk. So, but if you want to talk about his faith and want to talk about God,
right.
He would have long conversations with them about that.
Wow.
So, I mean, I just started reading his pilgrimages like when I was going through what I went through recently.
Yeah.
Not to give anything away, but I had a lot of time on my hands. So I started reading, and a lot of the stories I had already heard much of it just by talking with my parents and knowing what was going on.
Right.
But a lot of it was just remarkable that how much faith and trust he had in God to provide.
Yeah.
And complete. Now he's continued this in his life and still lives this to this day. He now is a part of a Mennonite community.
Yeah.
They're almost Amish-like.
Yeah. Pretty close.
But they use technology and things like that. But some of them dress very Amish-like.
Right.
And they live in a community, and some of them will share their finances.
Yep.
It's a farm community up in Plow Creek, Illinois.
Wow.
And he has a retreat ministry there. And he's lived there now 10 plus years, and he has he's married to a girl who was raised in France. Her parents were missionaries. And they live, he does not live of this world. He does not care of possessions or fancy things.
Man.
He's a true example of dying to self. Now, even though I saw that stuff, and I acknowledged that what he was doing, and, I would think to Mom, like, this is what you want, right? He's a good Christian man.
Right.
It wasn't my way. I was still too enamored with the world and fancy things, and I was selling high-end audio video and going into big, beautiful homes and buying nice things for myself, clothing and traveling and loving the world, and so concerned of other people's opinions of me, or at least what they thought how I lived. I wanted to look like I was even wealthier than I actually was. Owning things, more possessions, that's all that really mattered. I never thought of God at all. I was so out of the world.
He's out there.
And I acknowledged what he was doing, but that was his life and his decisions. So even, again, kept thinking, I'm the prodigal son. I'm living and doing and enjoying the world. Yeah. And then when it comes time, then I'll acknowledge God and I'll be saved. It's easy. I mean, he's already
got it all planned out.
Yeah, he's already paid the price. So why should I, suffer? Yeah. Why can't I enjoy this life? Right. So even with those examples, I didn't really get it. Yeah. And then right about this time of the year, actually next week or this week, 2017, Thanksgiving, I traveled back to Michigan and to Illinois. I flew my mom first class from Florida up there for a big family reunion Thanksgiving. And it was awesome. Both my side of the family, my dad's side of the family, we had a little Thanksgiving in Illinois, and my mom's side of the family, we had a big 52-person reunion Thanksgiving, which really brought her side of the family back together. It was my idea. I wanted to have a Thanksgiving like I did when I was a kid, but everybody was all grown up, and they had kids, and they had kids, and they didn't do that anymore. Right. So this was kind of a big deal for everybody to get back together. But my mom was now turning 79, I think, around there, and she wasn't planning on going back to Michigan very often, so everybody agreed to do it. And And after Thanksgiving, I flew home that Friday, and I was in a lot of pain. I had abdominal pain. Like, I thought, man, I shouldn't have had that second Thanksgiving dinner.
It's that midnight turkey sandwich.
I guess I overdid it, you know?
Dang it.
And I was in extreme pain flying home. It's a good thing I was first class, because I don't know if I could have handled it.
You're squirming all over the place.
Yeah, and they, fed us, but I didn't eat.
Right.
Got home. The pain continued. 2 days, 3 days. Having a medical background, I knew, okay, I got to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
Something's wrong here. I'm bent over in pain. I can't eat now. It's been like 4 days I can't eat. Things aren't working right. So I go into a little clinic just to get a checkup kind of thing. And he puts a stethoscope on my abdomen, and within 2 seconds says, you got to get to an emergency room.
Huh.
I'm like, okay. So and this is off of Maury, right across from where church is. There's a little clinic there, right by the gas station.
Right. I was just there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they tell me to go to an emergency room. So I don't know where to go. I've been living in this area now for 6 years. I know the Kaiser over there, and there's, Washington Hospital off of Maury. I just get in my car and I start driving, okay, without an idea of where I'm going to go. This is kind of really surreal for me, because it was like I went into autopilot.
Huh.
I didn't have an idea of a destination. I just started driving. And I was thinking, okay, when I see a hospital, I'm going to pull in. But I go by the Kaiser and I look at it and I just kept driving. I didn't even know why. I even thought to myself, why did I just pass that hospital?
Huh.
And then Washington Hospital was coming up. I pulled in and went into the emergency room. I spent like 3 or 4 hours there waiting because they didn't think it was an emergency. I was just having abdominal pain. I could just be constipation. That's not an emergency. So they made me wait quite a while before a doctor saw me. And then within about an hour of a doctor seeing me, they sent me up for a CAT scan. Within a half an hour after that, a surgeon was sitting at the end of my bed telling me I have a massive tumor and they have to check me in for an emergency surgery.
Whoa.
It's got to come out immediately. Now, by this point, I'm in so much pain. I'm just like, whatever.
Do what you got to do.
Get it out of me. I can't stand the pain anymore.
Yeah.
They offered me morphine. It didn't touch the pain. And they came in to give it to me again. I said, you know what? Don't even bother, because I don't notice a difference.
You kill me before you do anything.
Yeah. I'm in so much pain. This is not helping. So don't bother. It's just, you're just wasting my money. And they said, okay, well, then they upped me to Dilaudid, which is like 7 times morphine.
Yeah.
Which didn't stop the pain, but it made me not care.
Yep.
So I was just
trademark
like,
of
whatever.
Really good stuff.
Right. So they checked me in. My girlfriend comes in, to check on me. They didn't do the surgery the next day. They wait, because I had opted. They had told me, if we do the surgery, you're going to have a colostomy bag. So maybe we could put in a stent and then do the surgery the day after. And we can avoid that. So I was like, yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah.
And
I can wait.
The 24 hours went by and they didn't do anything. And then the doctor came in and said, we can't put in a stent. We're afraid your colon's going to explode. you have complete blockage. We have to do the surgery.
Man.
So I'm like, whatever, just do it. So I had the surgery. I come out of surgery. I wake up from the surgery. First thing I do is I lift up my shirt, the gown to see if I have a colostomy bag.
Right.
And I don't. And there's a surgeon standing at the end of the bed, and he's like, I'm not the one that did the surgery, but I got to tell you, it's a miracle what that guy did. Huh. He's like, you got really lucky. He said, this is the best surgeon for this specific thing. He's got the most experience with this. The guy you got, you just happened to come on the right day, and it was a miracle. That's all I can say. This is what the doctor said.
Yeah.
I was just happy I didn't have a colostomy bag at that time. So now for the recovery portion, I get put up on a ward, and you're waiting for things to start working. And it was bad. The tube down in the nose, down the throat, it was very uncomfortable. I was in a lot of pain. Almost a week had gone by and nothing was working. And they were starting to get really concerned because my levels were dropping. I'd withered down to about 138, 140 pounds. I was at like 195 when I came in. They were afraid to they thought they were going to have to do a blood transfusion, but they were afraid it could kill me. So they didn't want to. They were trying to wait it out. I was just in so much pain and so uncomfortable, and it didn't look like it was gonna. I didn't feel like I was gonna survive. I got to the point where I had a really bad night, and then, my girlfriend had come in, and my buddy was there, my best friend was there, and I was just so tired and angry and weak. I couldn't take it anymore. So I wanted to die. And I told them, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to make it. I'm going to die. So I started asking them, can you take care of my dog? Promise me you're going to take care of my dog. Tell my mom, I'm sorry. I don't have any more energy. This is not, it wasn't working out. And we were kind of solemn. They were sitting in the room with me. They were trying to cheer me up and stuff, but it wasn't happening. And I was well medicated. I was still like every 10 minutes I was pushing this button and getting very highly medicated just to deal with the pain. And then it was almost midday, and all of a sudden, this is almost unexplainable, I felt this peace wash over me. Like the pain was gone. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't frustrated. I was numb to all of that discomfort and frustration and anger. And I heard in my head, you're going to be okay. And I kind of sat up a little bit in my bed because it startled me. And I was trying to figure out, is this the meds? Am I but I felt completely sober all of a sudden. It was I didn't feel like I was medicated anymore. And I heard it again, you're going to be okay. And I started to get excited. And I like said to them in the room, hey guys, I'm going to be okay. And they looked at me kind of startled, like confused. And I heard it again, and I felt just so wonderful. It was such a unfamiliar feeling, especially at that moment.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot explain how wonderful I felt at that moment.
Huh.
Like, complete, utter peace. And it's just, no words can explain what I was feeling that moment. And I started, all of a sudden, like, I immediately at that point knew God, this was God. Like, I started seeing all these events in my life. Me going through that, getting arrested in high school and getting sent to a public school, which sent me to the military, which sent me to California, which then got married and moved to Orlando, which then divorced and sent me back out here. And then all of these things that had happened in my life, which drew me to this moment to be right here in this bed, right at this moment, at this hospital with that surgeon. It was just, all of a sudden, everything was clicking. Like, I was freaking out. And I called my mom and started telling her what I was experiencing. And she was excited. I think my girlfriend and my friend were confused and they were getting upset, actually, because they thought I was dying. They thought I was losing my mind. Right, right. My friend went home that night. He told me he went home and wept. Thought for sure I wasn't going to make it another night.
Whoa.
He thought I had totally just lost it.
Yeah.
You know?
Whoa.
Yeah. And I was starting to tell my mom, I'm seeing these things. I'm telling her, God is going to use me, Mom. God is going to use me to heal people's marriages. I was saying stuff like that. I was like, I can see how he's going to use me to help my friend and his family, and how he's going to use this and to share this. I was just saying all these crazy things, and I even saw these visions of me being a witness in front of all these people. And I was just sharing this with my mom. I didn't tell my girlfriend or my friend this because I knew they wouldn't understand it. She was praying with me at that moment. She was praising God. Now, we still hadn't gotten the results back from my surgery on what stage I was.
Right.
If they got it all, if it had spread.
Yeah.
None of that.
Right.
The rest of that day, I am pumped. Every nurse that comes in, I got to share with her. God saved me. I'm going to be okay. Okay. This one nurse comes in, and she's taking my vitals and everything, and I'm smiling. Yeah. Like, I went from angry and frustrated and upset and sad that whole week. Every nurse that came in, it was just like a, you know, to like, hi, how you doing? And
yeah, like,
it was it had to be so weird for them. And this one nurse comes in, and she's taking my vitals, and I'm sharing with her that I'm going to be okay and God saved me. And she says, you should go to Resonate. And tells me about Resonate Church. and then I'm like, oh, that's the third time I've heard about Resonate. And my mom's always told me, when you hear things in threes, it could be coming from God. So I'm going to Resonate. I'm definitely going to go to Resonate. And I was so happy. You know, I the rest of that day, I was just on cloud 9, you know.
Who's this nurse? What was her name again?
Her last name was Love.
Love. That's right.
And I have her. I have to look it up.
Nurse Love.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a perfect name for a nurse. Gosh. How could you not be happy to see Nurse Love?
There was another nurse, also with the last name Love, that came in and talked to me. And he, Jocelyn Love.
Jocelyn Love.
And, there's another nurse that came in, and he said his last name was Love. And we got into a conversation because I was telling him about what happened to me. And then he tells me he's Jewish. But then he tells me he's Jewish, but he believes in Jesus. He's a Messianic Jew.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know what that was.
Right.
And we had a great conversation. And he was studying the books, and he was teaching Hebrew, and he was studying the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I still have contact with him. We've never been able to get back together yet and have a conversation, but we've messaged each other a few times. So the next morning, this was on a Wednesday, okay, when this all went down.
Okay.
Thursday morning, the doctors come in. The surgeon comes in and says, "We've got the results. You're stage 3, but we got all the tumor. We got the whole tumor. And none of the lymph nodes were positive. So it didn't spread at all. So we got it all."
Wow. Bullseye.
So we just need you to recover. And, things still need to get working before I can.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to have anything by mouth, not even an ice cube.
Yeah.
Because if things aren't working, they can't put anything in. So I was still withering away. But later that day, that following morning, Thursday, things started working. And I walked out of that hospital on Friday.
Wow.
Less than 48 hours from the moment when I said I was going to be okay.
Wow.
If that's not a miracle.
That's pretty.
I mean, I went from death to life and walked out of there. It was... Now I leave there and I'm so convinced of God's love for me now, because of all the things I've just said prior to this, I am so undeserving. I mean, I've done everything wrong. There's no reason to be saved. There's no reason for him to love me. I couldn't be more undeserving. But he still saved me. And I was so sure that my life was changed at that moment. I was going to live completely the opposite. And I knew that going forward, whatever he led me or whatever he wanted of me, the rest of my life was for him. It was his. Because I was dead to this world at that point.
Yeah. And
it was kind of just the beginning of my struggle, because now I had to go through chemo going forward. I wasn't going to be able to work anymore.
Right.
I was still, like, if you looked at me, I looked like death. I was a shell of myself. I looked like I was anorexic. I was.
When you're probably still not eating a lot.
Right. I had
chemo.
I had just had one little meal at that point when I went home.
Gosh.
As soon as I was able to digest something and keep it down, they released me.
Yeah. Keep doing that.
So I was so anxious and wanting to go to Resonate, but I was told by the doctor that I was going to be seeing for chemo that I couldn't go and be around people. I still had to be, my immune system was so low.
Yeah.
And that I had a long road ahead of me.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a while before I could go to church. Okay, so I come back out here to a block away from here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to realize I'm not gonna be able to stay here. I can't. All my savings is gonna be eaten up in rent and bills and utilities and just surviving. I'm not gonna be able to work for at least a year.
Yeah.
So I had to shut my business down, being self-employed, no income. I couldn't even get in and out of bed by myself. I mean, I couldn't get up out of a chair by myself. I had all my muscles were like, had withered away to nothing.
Yeah.
I couldn't sit down by myself. I had a huge scar. They had opened up my abdomen. I couldn't do anything by myself. So my girlfriend literally had to quit her job to take care of me.
Whoa.
Because we couldn't afford to have a full-time nurse.
Yeah.
So now we're living off of my savings, and we're making decisions really quickly about how are we going to survive now.
Yep.
But I really wasn't concerned. I knew at that point, I was so sure God's got this. He just...
This is while you're reading your brother's...
Right. Now, I hadn't even started reading it yet, but I thought back of that. Like, God provided for him for years.
Yeah.
I know he's got me. He just saved my life. So, and I was... no question it was God in my mind. I mean, no one could convince me any other way that God loved me.
Yeah.
After what I had just went through and what I felt in that hospital bed that day. So while it was very traumatic and scary for my girlfriend, I wasn't really afraid. And then all of a sudden God started providing. Like, I remember how I said I had these relationships with clients.
Yeah.
Literally, clients started offering to come and pick me up and take me to my doctor's appointments. Clients lived in Palo Alto, would drive across the bridge, pick me up, take me back across the bridge to my doctor appointment, and then take me back here and sit with me and wait with me while I'm at my doctor's appointments to help my girlfriend. Started sending money. All these clients started stepping up saying, you really undercharged us. Here's $2,000. We really should have paid you. I can't tell you how many people just sent me money, and most of them were clients. It was blowing my mind. These relationships, they've told me I was like family, sending me food, coming and visiting me.
Wow.
It was, God used those relationships, that type of, those life experiences to build these strong friendships with these clients who had stuck with me 5, 10, 15 years. I had clients come and visit me in the hospital when I was still going through it. These are just customers. It was like,
wow.
Really, it made me feel loved. Like, wow. Like, not just my friends, but customers were all stepping up and taking care of me. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to continue to live here. And one of my clients offered me to move into her guest house, her pool house. And she said, you and your girlfriend can come move in here. I was going to be going to get my chemo in Mission Bay, UCSF.
Okay.
And she lived in Hillsboro, right in the Burlingame area. So it was really close by.
Yeah.
And easy for me. She said, I wasn't sure if that was a good idea. I wanted her to talk to her kids, even though her kids didn't live with her. I didn't want them to think, I was mooching off their mom or, and she talked.
Suspicious.
Yeah. She talked to her kids. She said it was really my decision, but I'll talk to my kids first. And they were okay with it. and she moved me into her guest house. One of my clients paid for movers to come and move my stuff. He took his employees from his company, sent them out with a truck, and moved me. Another customer. And we moved into this guest house, and she said, you can stay here while you go through chemo, no rent, no utilities.
Wow.
So, just...
This is the spot, you're still there.
This is where I live now.
Yeah.
Still, to this day.
Wow.
And...
That's amazing.
My mom was just like, God is providing for you.
Yeah.
God is putting you in positions. He's taking care of you. And over the next 6 months while I went through chemo, like within the first 2 months, paying rent and utilities and paying off some of the bills, my savings went down to nothing. So I was almost broke completely. So by the time I moved into her guest house, I had no money, but I had car payments. I had some credit card payments. I had consolidated some of my other cards. I canceled them all and consolidated them into a one-time, once a month type thing. But I had to keep paying these bills, you know, and I had no income, zero.
Man.
And every morning I would get on the phone with my mom, and we would pray. We would talk about how God was working in my life, and then we would pray about the next expense that was coming up. And like my brother's pilgrimage, God always provided every time. Like, often it was like the day before it was due, I would get a random card from somebody with just enough money for what was needed for that bill. Wow. And I would call my mom and tell her, and she's like, oh, I haven't talked to that person in years. It was just mind-blowing. And over and over and over again, he came through. So there was no way to even question it, that it was real. 2, 3, 4 months, 5 months. Now, from the outside, now my life's changed completely. Now I'm like all in on God, and that Jesus has saved my life, and I am changed. I'm a changed person. I have no problem sharing what God just did with me. But from the outside, people are seeing my life, and it's getting worse because I've lost my job.
Yep.
Now I can't afford rent. I'm living in somebody's pool house. I'm going through chemo, so I'm getting sicker. And the more you go through chemo, the worse it gets.
Yeah. The
sicker you get.
Yeah.
Every time it's a little worse. You're poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
You know.
What they say is you hope the cancer dies before you do.
Right.
That's it.
So they're doing this more as even though they got it all, because colon cancer is such a reoccurring type cancer.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that during the surgery, no particles or pieces or anything got spread.
Right.
So they want to make sure they got it, basically. About 4 or 5 months into the chemo, my girlfriend left me. It was too much for her. So the whole...
I was going to ask you about that.
Living in the guest house, not working. She was about to go back to work at her job. But I think it was just all, our lives completely got turned upside down.
Yeah.
And every day I'm talking about how great God is. So even though it looks like it's getting worse, and it is getting worse. I mean, in the world, as if you're judging it by the world standards, my life was still getting worse. Which they say a lot of times, you change your life, you give your life to Christ, it's not always going to get better. Matter of fact, it might get worse.
You're never promised
right
what you want.
Right. So by the world standards, people, my friends and that outside looking in,
right,
they're like, bro, it's not so great.
Right.
You know?
Well, and then when you start talking about the Jesus stuff,
right,
they probably feel like you used to. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
Here he goes again.
Why is he so confident?
Yeah.
How can he be so confident? And I'm sharing, he's paying my bills. I'm not late on anything, not once. And I'm so excited about this. And because of what he's done, and what he just did, and how he's continuing to come through for me, even though from the outside it looks like it's worse, I'm at a peace that I've never experienced before. I'm not relying on myself to provide for myself now. I'm completely trusting God's got this.
Yeah.
And it's such a freeing, uplifting, it releases all the weight off of your chest. It releases all the expectations. I'm not driving this vehicle anymore. So I'm just a passenger now.
Yeah.
It's easy.
You have a front row seat.
Right.
To see what he's doing. Yeah.
And because of the love and the peace that he's just overflowing me with by all these people reaching out, these clients, these customers stepping up like unbelievably.
That's incredible.
I'm feeling so loved.
Yeah.
You can't get down. Even when she left, it was sad, and it was a very bad situation. It wasn't just leaving, it was an attack on me. Like holding me, like resenting me and holding me responsible for what has happened in her life. But that couldn't even defeat me. I was still thankful. So, and I'm still getting sicker to a point where now my hands and feet went numb completely up to the wrist and up to my ankles.
Oh, gosh.
So they decided to stop the chemo maybe a month early. So I went through 5 months instead of 6 months of chemo. So because they stopped the chemo, now I can go to Resonate for the first time.
So this is then late
end
summer.
Of June, early July. I think July is...
Of 2017.
2018. 2017 was when I had the cancer.
Thanksgiving. Okay, 2018
now
summer.
I'm almost done with chemo June.
Wow.
I started in like February.
Yeah.
February, March, April, May, June. End of June, I stopped.
Okay.
So like early July, maybe the first Sunday of July.
Yeah.
I get to go to Resonate for the first time. And I'm pumped.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go to this place.
Did you call Joe? Were like, Joe, I'm coming?
I had no connection with him, so I didn't even know how to reach out to him.
He was probably standing there when you walked up.
He was. I would have recognized him.
Yeah.
I went to the early service.
Okay.
And I remember, Steve Mills, I remember. And how welcome I felt.
The best friend you never met before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, the first person out, for somebody standing out by the parking lot, and then somebody, approaching you as you get around the corner there.
Yeah.
And then, feeling a little confused or cautious as I walk in, and they had just started singing music when I walked in. And just like, when I heard them, I was just like, yes. The music really was the first thing that I was just like, yeah, this is the right place. And Ryan's sermon that day was about how God allows us to lose things in our life. And he said, you may have lost financially.
Yeah.
You may have lost a relationship. You may have health problems. And I'm literally weeping at this point.
Is there a spotlight on you?
Everything he's saying is my life right now.
Yeah.
Like literally. And he's explaining how God allows these things to be taken away. So we're completely relying on him, and we only can see him. And I'm like, he's preaching to me right now.
Yeah.
This is exactly what's good. After his sermon, I went up to him and I told him, you know, I've lost everything. My business, my health, my girlfriend. And he took my head, held it to his chest, and prayed with me, and I was weeping. And I left there like, Mom, this was just another affirmation. This was all God's plan, you know? All of these things that have happened in my life brought me to resonate that day, to experience that sermon, to encourage me that I was right in the right place. God's plan was so powerful and so amazing and so perfect. It was mind-blowing, you know? I was so thankful for all of these terrible things that had happened to me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just so surreal when I try to tell people I'm so glad I got cancer. It was the best thing.
That's a crazy statement.
It was the best thing that happened in my life. It destroyed this world that I was living in.
Yeah.
And turned it upside down.
That's truly an impossible statement. If it weren't for the fact that the gospel's real, there's no way that computes. It's error. Like it doesn't make sense if it weren't for. Yeah, it's the truth.
So I fill out one of those little cards at that sermon.
Yep.
I'm a new person, you know, at Resonate. And within a day or two, I got a response from
Tuesday, probably.
Yeah, Pastor Marty.
Yep.
Inviting me. They happen to be having a new member or a new guest.
Barbecue.
Barbecue, right?
Marty's house, yeah.
And it was that week. So I got to go.
Cool.
And that was a great experience. It made me feel so wonderful and so welcomed at Resonate. It began my relationship with Pastor Marty, who really became my closest friend and mentor at the church. I then joined his MC. That next session that came up.
You jumped right in.
And I made a decision like, okay, God, whatever you put in front of me, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
There's no more living for me anymore. There's no more, this is my life. I want to do what I want to do. It's like, whatever you present to me, I'm going to say yes. And because everything you've done up to this point has been right. So everything I did was wrong. Every decision I made for my life was the wrong turn every time. So I'm not driving this car anymore. It's all you. And that's still a struggle. Yeah. Because whenever I'm so easily distracted. I'm so quick to forget, you know. If I let my guard down for a second, I try to grab that wheel, you know.
Well, and it's also hard because God will ask you to do some very scary things. And if you're in the habit of saying yes to things, they just get more increasingly like intimidating. You're like, what are we doing here? Where's this going? You sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
Let me just
Delvin had that video talking about the setup crew at one of the sermons.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
Is that what that sounds interesting.
Uh-huh.
And I went once just to see what it was about. I'm a morning person. I'm up early anyway.
Good for you.
And I'm coming from Hillsboro,
Oh, that's right.
When I would go to Marty's MCs, sometimes it would take me an hour and a half to get there.
Oh, yeah, this is the wrong way to go.
Right. I'm fighting traffic.
Ugh.
Yeah.
There's no good way.
Right.
Yeah.
But one time with the setup crew, and I'm on it. I'm part of this. I loved the fellowship.
Yeah.
It was a way to get to know other people there at the church. I felt so, whenever I'm at Resonate, I feel so much closer to God.
Yeah.
I feel surrounded by his love. I want to be there as much. That's why I'm there so much,
Yeah.
From start to finish now.
I know exactly what I was there so much they started paying me to be there. It was great.
It's like I can't. If they're open, I'm there.
Yeah.
I that's where I'm at now. But it started with the setup crew.
Yeah. We were counting down to moving at that point, right?
Yeah. I did it for about 3 or 4 months. It was.
Yeah. Because it wasn't long after that.
It was that following year, early that following year, and then by the end of the year. So I did it for about 6, 7 months, and then we moved.
Yeah.
After maybe 2 sessions of the MCs, I became an apprentice.
Right.
There too, I mean, just sharing with the MC about what was going on in my life. I was hesitant to be completely honest because I didn't want people to bail me out or help me or feel responsible for me.
Right.
But several guys did start taking care of me, like sending me money randomly. And like literally I would get a message, God put this on my heart this morning, and Venmo me some money, and it was literally exactly what I needed for that next bill. Like the next day or 2 days later. It was just it was still going on now. This was like over a year, and God is still providing every time.
Yeah.
And I gotta keep sharing this with the guys. Like, this is mind-blowing. It's just, he never fails. He's so faithful. That's why when we're singing that, I'm in tears.
Yeah.
When he's talking about that, I start crying at church all the time. Just because I'm living it. He's doing it in my life over and over and over again. It grabs my heart and squeezes. And I want people just to know this love, to understand. The more you turn over your life to him, the more you allow him to guide you, the more you commit to him, he's not going to let you down. It's so amazing. So even recently, we move into the new church. I become part of the greeting team.
Yep.
I start staying for all 3 services. I'm there from start to finish just because I love it. And I want to be around everybody. And then the shelter in place starts. And when the shelter in place started, I was just about to start back working. I had a big project I was about to start literally that week when we locked down.
Yeah.
I was also going to come and do this.
That's right.
Monday.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And then lockdown happened and canceled it. And I'm kind of glad it did, because more has happened. I mean, God is still so. During the lockdown, or the shelter in place, I was spending more time starting reading my brother's pilgrimage. I was sharing that with the guys from the MC. Some of the other guys started to read it a little bit. My ex-wife from 28 years prior.
Oh, that's right. I have a note. Brazilian lady.
Out of nowhere, sends me a text message. And I wasn't going to respond because she destroyed my world.
Right.
I had no reason to want to talk to her again. She's like, "You're never going to believe who this is." And it's your ex-wife from, So I don't respond to her. I actually contact two of my brothers in the MC. I'm an apprentice with one other guy.
And you're like, "What do I do?"
Yeah. And it was interesting because they both were... I didn't even want to call my mom about it because I figured she'd be like, Don't talk to that. Yeah. She, out of wanting to protect me from being hurt again, And I talked to them about it, and they both encouraged me to respond. They said, at least to share your testimony. And I thought, this would be a good opportunity.
Yeah.
To at least just tell her what's happened in my life.
It's been a bit.
Yeah. And she can't really hurt me anymore because I don't have any feelings there anymore. So why not?
Yeah.
So I do respond to her, and we do start talking, and right away I share, what's happened in my life.
Yeah.
And that call, she recommits her life to Christ. She tells me of how she was very much in the church, in a church very similar to Resonate, for a good 20 plus years. And she was going through a hard marriage, and to a point where her husband kind of pulled them out of the church, made it uncomfortable for her to be able to go there. And then she finally was able to leave him. It was a kind of an abusive relationship, and it had been about 4 years now. She had been away from that and not living a Christian life anymore, and not surrounding herself with those people. And she was away. She wasn't praying. She wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
The world had gotten her, because of trauma that she had gone through. And just hearing my testimony, she was right back in it. I got her a devotional, New Morning Mercies. I sent it to her, and we started doing devotion every morning. She lives in Florida, so I'm an early riser. I tend to wake up around 4 a.m., so I'm kind of on East Coast time. She wasn't working she wasn't able to work during the shelter in place. So we would do devotions in the morning, and then, and I was working by this point. When I would come home in the evenings, we would FaceTime and talk for 3 to 5 hours every night, just about catching up. Now we could have conversations. Now she spoke fluent English.
She had a bit to learn.
Yeah.
Did you remember any of your Spanish or Brazilian, whatever?
Portuguese, yeah.
Portuguese.
I spoke Portuguese with her, and she was amazed. She was amazed that I could speak Portuguese.
That's funny.
Yeah. But God used this not only for me to share my testimony and draw her back to him.
Yeah.
But we had conversations about what happened 28 years prior.
Right.
And all the perceptions and the excuses and the things that I was bitter or angry about were wrong.
Huh.
And all the things I hated myself for or blamed myself for was wrong. It was the enemy making me weak and making me blame myself or blame her, and I couldn't forgive her for this, and she probably did this, and resenting her and killing my self-confidence in so many ways and hindering me from being able to have a loving relationship because of that. And us having this moment of going back over those times and what she was thinking and what she was experiencing and why she made decisions she made, it was a real healing time for me in my heart. And it was a gift, really. And it's, the best way I can explain it is that it healed my heart. And we continued to talk for a while, and we started falling in love again. But we've decided that that's not, long distance relationship, her there, me here. That's not really possible.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also as we started to talk more and I started to fall in love again, I think I started to put her up on this pedestal again and maybe started spending more time thinking about her than I was thinking about God. So he helped me to realize who's first in my life.
Yeah.
So I can put that aside. We can be friends. We have that connection. He brought us back together to heal me, to draw her back to him.
Yeah.
Mission
accomplished.
Yeah. And it's not always the reason I want it to be or think it should go.
Right.
But again, because, you're so quick to, this is, God's doing this so I can have this and this and this, and I want to take the wheel again.
Yeah, you're trying to finish the story.
Right.
Yeah,
and make it my reason.
Yeah.
And not his,
Yep.
So that was a blessing also.
Wow. What got her to reach out? What was it? Just out of the blue?
She had been, It's just so strange.
Weird.
It's very weird. She had been separated, divorced from her husband for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And during the shelter in place, I guess he started putting me in her head. And she wanted to have some closure because when she called, it was like, do you remember why we got divorced? She couldn't even really remember. And I'm like, yeah, you left.
Yeah, remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
Let me jog your memory.
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
That's funny.
But as we talked it out, but I had no anger anymore on it, so I was able to receive that and communicate with her without having any resentment or anger now. So the timing, again, his plan was perfect.
Yeah, I couldn't have
handled that.
You couldn't have heard it another time? No.
Never. I would never have been able to have that conversation.
Wow.
It's just amazing.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And so what do you think is next?
Okay, so also in this time talking with her, this is where God, I've been asking that question, like, ever since he changed my life. Okay, you saved my life. I'm going to this great church. But it can't be just for that. You have to have a purpose for my life now. And
what's the mission?
And
right?
Where do you want me? How are you going to use me?
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought that much about that day in the bed and some of the things that were revealed to me at that time since. But as we were talking, she had a dream about me, that same vision I had when I was talking with my mom about how God was going to use me. And I saw myself, standing in front of a large group of people, sharing God's word, how he's worked in my life or whatever I was doing. I was talking about him. Within a couple weeks, about 5 people came to me with that same vision, that they had it in a dream. One of the guys in my MC, we were talking about God's gifts, and one guy's gift was teaching, and one guy's gift was this, and one guy's gift was that, and another guy came up and he shared that God shows him things sometimes, and he had to share this with me. Now, I hadn't told him that she had a dream about this, and I didn't tell the other people that I saw this in my hospital bed, and I didn't tell. So within a matter of a couple weeks, like 5 different times, this was brought to my attention again. Confirmation.
That's the churchy word for that.
I felt like, okay, I think you're trying to tell me something here. But for me, I'm a people person. I love, conversationalists. I love being with people and getting to know people and building relationships, but I'm not a confident speaker. I'm not versed in God's word. I'm just beginning my walk. I'm just beginning to study the Bible.
Right.
I'm not very knowledgeable. I'm not great in praying in public. I'm just getting more comfortable with that. As I'm not trying to impress others. I'm just speaking with him.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's I kind of want to fight that. Like, I can't get in front of a lot of people and speak.
Careful.
Careful. So then, but then again, as the other confirmations are, it's not really me.
Exactly.
I'm not the one that's going to be doing it. It's if this is how God wants to use me, then I'm just the vessel.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit's going to do the talking and guide me through the stages and the steps that I need to do to prepare myself for that. I need to continue to work on me. I need to pray to not be so judgmental, to not be so quick to anger, to be forgiving and have it, be like Joe, where give grace immediately. Don't judge.
Trust God.
Trust God.
Just say yes.
Yeah. So I've reached out to Pastor Jackson, and he's led me to this course to take, ambassador curriculum course, to kind of just start working towards whatever God has.
Yeah. What is
in
that?
store for me? It's called the ABCs. It's called an ambassador curriculum course, I think.
Is it like a scriptural teaching, or?
I think it's preparing for evangelism or being a missionary or something in that realm.
Yeah, you haven't started yet?
No, I just got it. I just got them all on discs.
I was just about to say you need to pay attention more.
Yeah, I haven't even started it.
Okay.
I got them all on. It's like three different courses, and they're like 5 discs, and you.
Okay.
You got to do them on the computer. I was going to take it with me on a car ride because I do a lot of driving around to clients.
Yeah.
But it's only on a PC type thing, because I guess you go through a course and then you do a test and you go through a course and you get a
it's a correspondence learning style.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm going to start that soon.
Step 1.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, just at the last members meeting, Pastor Ryan was talking, and he talked about how Resonate is a teaching church. He talked about someone that was looking to become a pastor. I again, none of that is like expectations on my part.
Right.
It's just I'm open to however God's going to use me.
Yeah.
And I just want to start focusing on preparing myself, not just by learning his word and studying the Bible, but how I live my life, how I treat other people. I'm an ambassador more, not just by my words, but by my actions. Working out all the sins that I still continue to struggle with, So I think I feel a little more confident that he has plans for me. And I'm just going to...
I'm sure he does.
Continue to... I mean, he saved my life for a reason.
Yeah.
And I've gone through a lot of these terrible things in my life.
Yeah.
For a reason. So I feel like he can use those things as a way to connect with people. Just like as a salesperson, I was a relationship type sales.
Right.
Because I would connect with people, and I have these bad decisions I made in my life, and I've gone through these bad times, but so have other people.
Yep.
And if he loves me and saved me, even though, again, I was so undeserving and so selfish and so of this world, then anybody can be saved, and anybody can see that he loves them just as much.
Yeah. Well, your story gives you access to people that, a lot wouldn't. Because there's something really powerful to be able to talk to somebody and say, I was just like you. I know exactly how you feel. Right? And you do.
Yeah.
If you hadn't gone through all that, you'd be lying.
Right. Whether it's the legal problems that I had and how unfair that was, I felt.
Right.
Or the divorce that I went through, or the being around the dark parts of this world with the drugs and the crimes, just being exposed to that.
Well, and you can say I understand you, but so does God. Like, he knows those things too. He knows about unjust, unfair, painful. What are we doing, dog? You okay?
Yeah.
I had to kick her out for these things. It's ridiculous.
I remember Justin's. That was hilarious.
So let me ask you this. This is one of my two favorite questions. Okay, is the kind of like the what is next thing. I'd love to know, like, what is like the thing that you're learning right now, like as we're coming out of or hopefully coming out of the COVID bit and business is starting up. You're starting this class. Like, what's that front row thing that he's teaching you?
I'm mainly just to be accepting of what he's putting in front of me, whether I think I can do it or not, that it's not on me, that it's not my abilities or capabilities, that all things are possible in Christ. And I'm taking on more things in the church as far as leadership positions, being, the parking ministry, leading the parking ministry now, where I never would consider that. Yeah. Before. and just allowing him to mold me and into how he sees me, not my vision of myself, but just be accepting of his will completely.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
That's why I was so surprised that step my brother took to give up all of these things. I mean, he was so successful.
It's the ragged edge.
And just walked away from all of that.
Yeah.
And completely accepting of God's will in his life. And even as like recently with some of the things that were shown to me, I wanted immediately to take the reins.
Yeah.
And
we have a heading.
Go with it. I think
Let's
God
go.
showed me this. Now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take charge, and instead of just allowing him to lead me.
Yeah.
We're so quick to want to take the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's, human nature.
I think of following Christ as actually walking like on stones through fog, and he gives me vision to see like that next stone, and I feel like I spend so much time like flapping my arms around trying to clear some fog so I can see a few more ahead. And he's like, no, because every time I do that, I'm just blowing my energy out, getting all frustrated and all that. He just says, it'll be there. I'll show you the next one. Just say yes, do the next thing. But once in a while, you get a little peek, like that, like a little further out. You're like, oh, is that where we're going? Okay.
It's a struggle for me because I'm ADHD, so I'm very easily distracted.
Yeah.
A little shiny thing over here or something over there.
The squirrels everywhere.
I gotta keep drawing my attention back to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keeping my focus on him.
Yeah. All right, last question. Of all the things you've learned about Jesus from being a little Baptist / Lutheran kid all the way till now, like what is it about him that like you would find so amazing as to say, like, I'm thankful I had cancer because I've seen this? Like, it's a crazy thing to say. What is it about him that's so good that would be true?
I'm so amazed. I'm so thankful of how much he loves us, that he would be willing to live a perfect life, not fall for any of these temptations of the world, not enjoy any of these worldly things that we are tempted with every day, just so he could take all of our sins and be blamed and carry all of that weight, so undeserving, but to love us that much.
Yeah.
To the point where he's gives his life as he's cursed and abused and disrespected and taunted. Just the unimaginable love and grace. Every Sunday when we talk, when it comes to the gospel, and this is brought up, it just highlights how undeserving I am of his love.
Yeah.
How selfish, disrespectful I was. Yet he still saved my life. He still loved me and forgives me and took all of my sins upon him. It's...
Yeah. That kind of generosity is... It's very foreign. I think that's why it's so impacting. It's impossible.
And all those moments how unfair it is to him.
Yeah.
How I felt, oh, this is unfair that I'm being blamed for these other guys' actions.
Right.
But I was in the car. How unfair it was that this person did this to me or that to me. But I've wronged people.
Right.
But he didn't ever.
Yeah.
He didn't deserve anything. Any of that. How unfair it was to him. That's just... It makes me feel... There's a sadness that comes to my heart. Like,
yeah.
I don't want him to feel that.
Right.
I don't want him to carry that.
Yeah.
But without him, then that's how God would see me.
Mm.
So I'm so thankful.
Gratitude replaces that.
It's just...
Yeah.
I love him so much.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even compare to how much he loves us.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I hope that, like... I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing this vision of yours. Or vision of others, I guess. Because that's the meaning of life is knowing him and seeing who he is and what he's done, and just you never fully grasp it, because you think like the more you learn that you'll get it more. It seems like the more you learn, just the more like crushed you are by it.
Yeah.
And to develop that ability to take others into that with you and confront them with this truth is powerful. And I could see that that's in you. How cool.
And to share that with others and for them to have that same peace that I now have.
What else is there?
I mean, and I still struggle every day with the world.
Yeah, of course.
But when my eyes are on him, when my thoughts are on him, it's just all joy.
Yeah. Share it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope he uses me in ways that I can't imagine,
Yeah.
Words gives the words that I don't have.
Yeah.
And
wow. I like the beautiful words. I like the words you used today. Let's close it there.
Yeah.
We're creeping up on 3 hours. This was good, man. Dude, thank you so much. Thank you.
This was great. Yeah.
Beautiful. What a story. Gosh.
Really. God is great.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to process some of the stuff you said. Yeah. Being this close to these rather than listening to them, I get hit the hardest by every one of these, and I always have to like take a bit. Like after you leave, I'm just gonna sit there and think for a while. It's humbling to see Christ work in my life, but it's refreshing, humbling to see what he's done at yours. It's different than mine, but it's the same God. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, give me a bump, and we'll close it there. Thanks, bro.
All glory to God.
Nice. All right. There you have it. David, thank you so much for coming today, and thank you folks out there for listening to the show. I am epically, deeply grateful for every set of ears that tunes into these interviews. I honestly started doing this because I just wanted to hear this podcast. I wanted to hear people's stories, and the fact that there are people out there who would turn their ears toward it and listen in is humbling. And it's just my prayer that these words, that this time we spend here, and the stories that I'm putting up on the web, and the people that just have the guts and the faith to put their stories out there, man, I pray that these change the world a little bit. And I just pray that you would also be led to be an engine that drives that forward, that you would share these episodes, that you would just support the show prayerfully, and that if you're led to, that you would come over here, sit across this table, talk to me. Anyway, if you do want to come on the show, if you want to get in touch with me, you can follow the Facebook page, look for The Great Stories Podcast, and you can also send me an email at thegreatstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, folks. God bless you. See you later. Aha, you are still listening to the show, and that means you have left your player on for too long, or you knew this was coming and you couldn't wait to see what random stuff was on my mind. Well, today, really simple. There's no greater discipline, really, in one's life than to read their Bible. And I just figured it would be useful to show people, or at least tell you, just how I read the Bible, how I do it. Because there's a lot of different methods. You hear people, you get the 1 year Bible, or they do a little bit of this, a little of that. They do some Old Testament, some New Testament, and the Bible reading plans. And that's not really what I'm talking about, because while I think there is value to just high volumes of Bible consumption, I am far more interested in how you approach Scripture in order to get the most out of it. Not that we're looking to receive some product from it, but what I mean, how do you dig through Scripture for the truth that's within it? And I'd love to just give you a tool that I use almost every time that I read Scripture. When I go through with my girlfriend right now, we kind of are crawling through the book of Luke together, and we're actually doing it incredibly slowly, like sometimes just 4 or 5 verses at a time. And what we'll do is I'll just pick a very short passage. It's usually like, okay, the parable of the sower, or the story of when Joseph and Mary left Jesus at the temple, like that kind of stuff. One little tidbit of Scripture. And we'll talk about it and just look at it from all these different facets, and try to like put ourselves in the different positions, and just kind of just look around the passage and see what's in there. See that reminds me of this, that reminds me of that. But at the end, I always approach it with these 3 basic questions. And these 3 questions have helped me to wring the truth more and more out of Scripture. Every time I do it, I make connections that I didn't before. So productive. The first thing that I do, I'll ask one question. I'll say, what does this passage teach me about God? And what I mean to say is that, imagine that like God is sitting across the room over there, and you're just talking to someone else about him. Like, oh, look at how, look at that guy's shoes, or look at his pants, or the haircut. Like you're describing things about God. Like, God is very patient in this passage. God is very powerful. Wow, God does what he says he's going to do all the time. God is very just. oh, God doesn't like this. God doesn't like that. Like, you can learn a lot about God. Okay, that's question 1. Question 2 is, how is Jesus the hero of this passage? And sometimes that's harder to find, especially as you're reading like obscure Old Testament stories and all that. But the truth is that the entire Bible, in one way or another, every story that's told in there relates to, ties into, foreshadows, in some way is connected to Jesus. And that could be harder to find. That's why, having a knowledgeable person you can get in touch with and say, hey, what about this? But that's a big truth. The third thing I ask myself, so first is, what does this teach me about God? How is Jesus the hero of the story? The third thing is, what does this mean for me? Basically, if what I said about God is true, and if what I just learned about Jesus is true, what does this mean for me? Maybe it means like, wow, I can trust God with my life. Wow, God's never going to leave me. Wow, God is so powerful. I think he's powerful enough to take care of me. Like, things like that are just those tidbits you can walk away with, and then you pray and you ask God, like, hey, just let me really believe this. Let this truth that I've learned about you change my life. I've honestly found that only takes a very short amount of time. It doesn't need to be these hours and hours poring over Scripture to get a lot out of it. You can get tons out of literally just reading like a couple verses. The Bible is so densely packed with truth. It's all in there. And just for the knowledge of God, for the relationship with Christ, for the reformation of character, there's no greater favor you could do for yourself than just to dig into his word and just ask 3 simple little questions. All right. Thanks for listening to the bonus round, and love you all. See you next time.